So do you play sports back home, and what do you play?
I do. As a child growing up, I did a lot of swimming and a bit of track. And in Kenya, that's very big, track and cross country. And I did that for a while until I got to high school. And then I started playing soccer. And so I'm in school at the African Leadership Academy. I'm actually part of the girls' soccer team. I play as an attacking midfielder.
Do you note any differences between soccer in Africa as opposed to the US? Is there anything that you've noticed that is different, or even the way you approach the team?
I think the major difference about soccer here and in Africa is that as African people, most people who actually are soccer fans, they don't watch the American Soccer League, but they mostly focus on the European leagues. As for American soccer fans, they actually watch both the English Premier League and the other European leagues and their own local leagues as well.
I see. So they're more global about it.
They're more global about it. And a lot of African sports fans and soccer fans, that is, they don't actually focus too much on the local leagues themselves. They're very focused on the international leagues, and that's actually a very big problem back home, I think, and we should try to solve that. But for the Americans, it's actually very good. I've noticed that they actually take an interest in their own leagues as well.
So tell us about meeting the managing director of Kaizer Chiefs, which is one of the most successful sports clubs in South Africa. What did you learn about the importance of sports team management?
So it was part of this executive seminar we usually have in my school, and we have guest speakers come over, and he was the guest speaker that day. And so Kaizer Chiefs is one of the most successful soccer teams in the PSL, which is the South African Soccer League. And he was speaking about managing the team and actually trying to make it grow. And he talked a bit about the history when, so the founder of the club is called Kaizer, and how he started it and how he was trying to propel it. So he just got a few players, put them together, and they actually went around South Africa playing other teams, and that's how it grew. He talked about a bit about the logistics and the importance of fans, and actually getting them to come into the games and actually give the team support. He also talked a lot about the youth and their role in the sports industry in South Africa. He mentioned how they actually do a lot of talent scouting and how they actually have an interest in the development of talent and also the role of education with most players. Because in soccer, most players don't actually continue with the schooling as they get more and more into the sport. They actually stop midway and actually focus on the sport. But he mentioned
even in high school they would do that?
Even in high school they would do that. So he mentioned that they actually try to make sure that they actually go to school, but they also actually play the soccer. So that way it's actually a balance between their talent and actually education. So I learned a bit about that as well, and how they actually go about supporting this talent and developing them, and how strong their youth support system is in the club.
Interesting. So how do you define entrepreneurship in sports? What does that mean to you?
Entrepreneurship in sports for me would be innovation in the sports industry. There are so many different ways to look at it, in the sense that sports is it's a social enterprise, really, and when you're focusing on people, there's so many different areas you can look at. There's the technological aspect, there's obviously game experience on a personal level, and entrepreneurship there's a lot to be done, and entrepreneurship in sports. There's so many different ideas that actually come to my head in terms of the facilities management. And when I was actually applying to the WSPA program, and I actually wrote about different types of ideas that can actually be put in place, right? Like how many different sports fans can actually buy different merchandise everywhere, and they can actually get that on an online sports team. They can actually also be a sports academy that actually takes talented people from different sports, put them together in an academy where they can actually do their sports as well as actually continue with their education. So entrepreneurship is very, very wide, and there's a lot of potential.
Yeah, and that potential really speaks to the fact that you feel that the sports industry is lackluster in Africa. So how can entrepreneurial thinking revive it? First of all, talk a little bit about what you think is lacking in the sports industry in Africa, and how that entrepreneurial spirit can really help bring it back to life.
The first thing that is lacking back home is that there's not so much focus in the local leagues. Everyone has this great passion for the sports, right? Mostly it's actually soccer, but we call it football back home. So everyone has this great love for football, and their focus area is actually on the English Premier League. No one actually really cares about the Kenyan Premier League or whatever. In South Africa, it's a bit different because actually people go for the games. But in Kenya, which is my home country, it's not really the case. So the first problem is actually getting people to focus back to their local leagues and actually support it. And coming here and learning a bit about the sports industry here, I've actually gotten more insight on how to improve things back home in terms of facilities, in terms of like the technology used. The media is also not that much involved in the games that go on at home. So there's actually the opportunity there to actually expand in terms of media rights as well. There could be very many different areas to actually expand on it as well. So the talent is there, and it's not being exploited as well. Most Kenyans focus on football and track, and that's what they actually work on, right? But other sports like basketball, who actually have a passion for basketball, don't really have the avenues to try to develop that talent in itself. Cricket, a bit as well. Swimming, not too much, because again, the facilities are not really available to people who can't afford them. So there's also that opportunity. I think it's basically trying to exploit, trying to actually develop that talent and actually make people better in that industry. And if we could do that back home, that would be the starting point. And then people would, getting people to actually get back behind their local teams and the support, and that would actually make the industry go. And all these other different things would come in a bit later.
So what do you see as your role in that endeavor?
Actually, in my school, we have this entrepreneurship class. And a few friends of mine, we came up with this idea of a sports academy, like I said, right? So we could actually get people who are talented and really are passionate about their sports. And we could get them together and try to develop them and actually make their talent grow and actually give them opportunities to become professionals in the sports industry. So that's a good way. We could easily get a few talent sporters to come over. But the problem with that is it would be a bit of a drain on the African continent, because when we're developing most of these young people, and even back home I have a few friends who are really talented, but they don't want to play for the local leagues. They don't want to be professionals in the local leagues. They actually want to go abroad to other countries and play. And I understand them from their point of view, because it's a better opportunity. But how else will you actually make the local leagues grow if the local talent keeps moving away from that? So that's a big problem. And we thought of actually starting small leagues, very small leagues. Like, so just getting a few teams together, asking them to pitch, to give in a bit of money, and actually they can pay for it together. So the winner obviously takes the most of the money, and then a bit of it can actually go to the expenses that we incurred while running the bit of the league. So in my school, that's actually one of the activities I was trying to carry out as part of the sports department there. That's pretty much it, actually.
So that's in the short term, though. But where do you see yourself even down the road? Like, where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years, maybe, as in a sports business career, do you think?
In a sports business country? I hope so. I really hope so. It's a very hard question. 5 to 10 years down the line.
If you had an ideal job title or some area within sports business that you would like to focus in on, what would that be?
5 to 10 years time, because I have an interest in football, and working for FIFA would be ideal, but on the African continent. I really don't have an interest in going to work outside the African continent, because the potential is back home, and actually growing that is ideal for me. Possible areas to start would be, so we have the Confederations Cup back home, and that's where the best teams in each country get together and they play against each other. So actually expanding on that, trying to get more publicity about it back home and getting more fans involved in that would be ideal. Also somehow organizing the African Cup. So this is actually where the countries get together and they play for to be the African champions, and that would be very good as well. That one's it's fairly successful. but I think there's more potential for growth in that area. So working on those two areas would be very good. Also in talent development, in any way I can, if it's actually trying to start this sports academy of sorts, and it can be completely integrated, different people from different areas can get together and actually do it. Working with a few minor leagues. So in Kenya we call it Ligi Ndogo, that's the little leagues, and they can come together and they can actually grow. So there's potential there as well. Yeah.
So you also have a passion for writing and editing, I understand. Tell us about that, and how do you feel the growth of social media is affecting sports? Have you given some thought to that?
Yeah, definitely. Social media is a very powerful tool these days. And so back in school, we started this, the Alien Life. It's the online publication for the school. And it's completely run by the students, and we report on different events and occurrences in school life, in the community. And in sports, it's very important. So different types of social media like Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, they're actually very powerful tools because the message is actually getting across. All this different events actually being being shown on YouTube, for example, or information is being spread through Twitter and everything like that. For example, yesterday we had a guest talk from the athletics director here at Penn. And she was talking about how the teams, actually the different types of teams they have here, when they're actually at the games, they actually tweet about what's going on. That way people back here at Penn can actually know how the game is going. And that's important in the sense that the information is getting out and actually brings in more fan participation in that sense, and also more publicity for the teams.
And do you feel there's potential for growth in that way in Africa?
Yeah, definitely. Facebook is the thing back home right now. Twitter, it's growing. It's definitely growing. If teams could utilize social media even more back home, it would be ideal. Because I know, for example, in the Kenyan Premier League, they actually started using that. So Gor Mahia, they're the champions of the Kenyan Premier League. They actually use Facebook a lot, try to reach out to their fans and let them know what's going on, and they post on their Facebook page. So that actually just brings in a lot of fan participation. There's definitely room for growth in almost all sports there.
Okay, well, thank you very much for talking with us today.
Well, thank you very much.